Welcome back, guys. In today's video we're going to be looking at the A32NX by FlybyWire and the ILS Autoland system, how it works and how to set it up. Before we start the video, I just want to say that you guys are absolute legends and I appreciate every single one of you. At the moment of recording this video, the channel is currently sitting at 269 subscribers. So if you've already subscribed, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you're alerted of any upcoming new released videos. And don't forget to share it with your family and friends. The next goal we're trying to hit is 500 subscribers, and I'm sure that's going to be a piece of cake for you guys because you guys are all awesome. And now let's get on with the video. So just to be clear, guys, I'm not a real pilot and I'm not claiming to be. This is a hobby of mine and I really enjoy it. I've been flying Flight Simulator for many years, and you know, I've transitioned from FSX to P3D, flying the commercial jets like the PMDGs from Boeing, and now I'm on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and this freeware aircraft seems to have a lot of the study level abilities, so that's why I decided to make this video. Alright, so let's get right into it. So the first thing we want to do, and this is one of the most important things, is the flight planning. So you want to open up the sim and you want to go into your world map and you want to pick your departure location and your arrival destination. So for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to pick two airports in Portugal, which are airports that I usually fly from, and they are payware airports. So I'm going to leave LPFR and I'm going to be arriving at LPPR. Next thing you want to do is you want to pick your aircraft. So again, for the purpose of this, I'll be flying with the A320neo. Alright, so this next step now is going to be very important for this whole ILS auto landing system to work. So what you want to do is you want to go to the airport where you're arriving, and you see right now it's making me land on runway 35. But because I changed to IFR low altitude airways there on the left, I now have the option to pick my own approach. So you want to pick anything that says ILS. So for this case, I'm going to use ILS 17. And this is going to give me a north to south approach. And you see that pink line that shows up now. This is going to be my approach path. So if you look at the full path, you'll see the blue line. The autopilot will take me straight north, and then once it hits the approach, that pink line, it'll turn me around and come back down south to line up on runway 17. Now let's change the time to daytime, and I will give you guys a little tour of the airport we're taking off from, LPFR. So this is an airport in Faro, which is the southernmost point of Portugal. Now this is a payware airport. So I will make sure to add the link for it in the description, and you guys can just sit back, watch this little cutscene, and I'll see you guys in a few. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little preview of the airport we're taking off from. So here we are inside the A320 by FlybyWire, modeled really well. On our left hand side here we have a nice little cup of coffee, and we have our electronic flight bag. So if you click on it, it'll turn it on. This does have a few options. You can see weather, and you can see some information for the aircraft, and there is a calculations page. So What we're going to do now is we're just going to set up the airplane to get ready for departure. And right now I'm just checking the camera outside to make sure there's nobody there. The MCDU, which is a little flight computer you see here, when you click on the flight plan, you'll see that all the waypoints are already in there, which is why we had to do that initial setup in the beginning of the flight plan. So don't touch anything else on there. Now just move up to your automated control panel up here. We're going to put the altitude first for 10,000 feet, and then you're going to push the little down arrow, and that will engage the altitude. The next thing you want to do is we're going to look at the speed, and under the 10,000, let's put it to about 240. And once we put in the 240, again, you're going to push that down arrow, and that will engage again the speed. Now this heading, you saw it says all zeros. If you push on the up button, or the up arrow, you'll see these little dashed lines, and now that means that the nav has been selected as your course heading. And now I'm just zooming out on the main display so that I have a more visibility over the map to see where I'm going. So now let's look at the lights up above our heads. The strobes, beacons are on, the wing light is off, the runway turn off is on, the landing lights are on. So the nav and logo, because it's daytime, I'm turning that off, and the nose, I'm turning that on to taxi. So now that we've done all of this, our aircraft is pretty well ready to go. So now, just giving you guys a little bit of an exterior view here. What you want to do now is you're going to make sure that your speed brake is turned off, and that your air brake, for some reason on this version, when you start the aircraft, it's down. It needs to be pulled up, or else you're going to get an alert. So now that we've done that, let's push the throttle, and away we go. So our nose is pitching up. We've taken off from the ground. We want to raise our landing gear. And now we're on a nice steady climb. And we're going to wait. We're going to get to a cruising altitude where we feel comfortable. And at that point, then we'll engage the autopilot. And then we'll just monitor the aircraft to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do, which is following the flight plan and maintaining the speed that we've put in there. So right now I'm manually flying the aircraft, and I'm just making a small right turn, and that's just to align the aircraft to our existing flight plan. And once we get it on the line where we want it to be and it's heading on course, at that point then I'll level off the aircraft and I will engage the autopilot. Alright, so we're just about level, so now is a good time we can engage the autopilot. And you'll see the aircraft now is making a small little right turn again, so we're probably just off the flight plan by a little bit. It's going to align itself back onto that green line, as you can see. And now the next thing you want to do is you want to pull your throttle back to where it says CL, the indent on the throttle quadrant there. So what that does is it's going to tell the computer now to maintain that speed that I've inputted, which is a 240. So now that that's done, again, you want to always monitor and make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. I'm going to manually increase my rate of climb to 1800, and this will just help me maintain a nice steady climb to the altitude that I've assigned. And you don't have to do this, the computer can do it on its own, but I like to manually pick my rate of climb, and I'll just continue to monitor the computer until we get to the desired altitude. Alright, so let's take a look now and see how we're doing. So our main flight display here shows speed in green, which is good, our vertical speed of 1800, and nav. So when it's green like that, that means the autopilot is holding the speed that we've assigned, which is 240. The vertical speed is assigned to 1800, which is great. And nav is exactly where we want to be, because that just means that the computer is following the path that we've assigned. Now that we've reached 10,000 feet, let's climb. And I know I picked low airways in the beginning, but it's okay. We're going to climb. Let's just assume that we got permission. And I'm going to push it up to, let's say, 32,000 feet. And again, you want to push that little down arrow, which activates in the computer that that's the altitude that you want to go to. And for the speed, now that we're climbing over 10,000, we can push it to the max to get there quicker. So I believe at that type of altitude, this aircraft can push close to 300. So let's put it at 300, and again push that down arrow, which activates the desired speed. And if we look at our flight display here again, you'll see we're climbing, and our speed is also going up by the little yellow arrow you see going up in the speed. And that green line you see on the right, it just shows the vertical speed that we're climbing at. So we're doing well. Now we're going to just continue to climb. You guys are doing an amazing job. Just sit back, have a sip of your coffee, enjoy the views, and I'll let you guys know what the next step is. Okay, so we're just at about our cruising altitude, and the way I can tell that is you can see that little blue outline on the main flight display that's moving downwards. That's our altitude hold, and you see it's almost at 32,000 feet. And now you can see just to the right of that, that little green line, you can see that it's slowly coming back into the center position, which means the nose is coming back down and it's leveling off to maintain that altitude. And again, on the flight display, you can see that the top portion still shows in green that the speed is still being controlled, the altitude is holding now, and we're still on nav. So what do you guys think? So far so good, easy enough. This aircraft is really well done. It's a very smart aircraft, and I really enjoy flying it. I would love to know what you guys think in the comments down below, if you guys fly this aircraft often, and if you do, what do you enjoy about it, and where do you usually fly to? I know there's some people that usually fly specific routes or copy existing flight plans in the real world. So it's interesting, because I know people do a variation of different things, but this aircraft is probably one of my favorite in the sim right now. Okay, so in preparation for landing, the next thing you guys want to do is you want to see if you can find yourselves some approach plates. And an approach plate looks like this. I'm going to pull it up here for you so you can see it. I mean, it's not necessary if you don't have the plates or you can't get them. I would probably say an altitude of 2,300 feet or 2,000 feet would be safe. But I use this Navigraph charts, and I look here for the runway I'm landing on, which is runway 17, and this will give me or tell me what I should be at once I reach the glide slope. So chart is telling me that I should be at 2,400 feet. Now that I know that, I'm going to start my descent, so I'm going to reduce my altitude down to 10,000 feet because I'm still far away from the airport, but I want to get down to a safe altitude where I don't have to rush to get everything done. And again, because I'm not a real pilot, I'm not really 100% sure how to calculate the descent rate. So again, I'm putting the altitude to 10,000. I'm pushing the down arrow to activate, and I'm doing the same thing with my speed. I'm going to reduce it to 240 and activate it by pushing that down arrow. And if I look at my main flight display, you can see again on the left hand side, you see that down arrow pushing the speed downwards. And then you're going to see the computer is going to start pushing that green line down, which means my nose is pitching and I'm starting to descend. And if I want to go faster, again, you push that up arrow, and now I can change my vertical speed. So if you go in the negative, it's going to pitch your nose down. If you go positive, it goes up. So I'm going to go negative to 2800, and that's going to give me a fairly quick descent rate. So again, you got to monitor and keep your eyes on it, but when you start to pitch down heavily and go at a fast rate, you will tend to pick up speed. So just monitor and check that you're descending at a nice rate and it's comfortable. If you see that you're going too fast, the aircraft does have air brakes. So if you feel like you're going too quick and your speed is going back up, you can just slow the aircraft down by pulling on that air brake, and you can do 50% or you can do 100. It's whatever you feel is comfortable for the passengers. Okay, so here's a tricky situation for you. You've been following nav up until this point. All of a sudden, it's not following nav anymore, or your flight plan, and you find yourself off course, or you need to guide your aircraft in a different direction. What do? So the next best thing you can do is you can use the autopiloting system to go in a certain heading. So up top here, you're going to find your heading knob. You're going to click up to change it from automatic to manual, and then you're going to rotate it, and you'll see your aircraft will bank either right or left where that little blue triangle is. And right now what I'm trying to do is I'm just going to turn my aircraft to line itself up again with that green dotted line. And if you haven't already done so, guys, make sure that you put your altitude now to 2,400 feet. And I'm just going to engage the, again, vertical descent to 2,800 just to give me that nice descent rate that I want. So again, guys, just keep your eyes on it, keep your eyes on your instruments, your displays, and just make sure that the aircraft is doing what it's supposed to do. In the event that it doesn't, the aircraft usually has redundancy systems, or it'll give you some sort of an alert, or it'll notify you that something is wrong and give you the opportunity to correct it or fix it. So let's quickly talk about the ILS approach. So ILS actually stands for Instrument Landing System, and it's a procedure that pilots with aircrafts that are capable usually perform when they have zero to no visibility of the runway, or they're in bad weather. It'll help the aircraft automatically land itself. So at this point here, guys, we're actually very close to the airport, and now is a good time to enable the approach. So you're going to push this approach button, and on the left here underneath the barometric pressure, there's a button that if you press, it will turn on your ILS on the main display. So for those of you who don't know, the ILS are actually beacons on the runway, and the beacons transmit two different frequencies, and these are measured both horizontally and vertically, and will tell the aircraft if it's too high or too low on approach. Since we're so close to landing, I'm going to give you guys another tour of the airport that we're landing at. This is LPPR, and this is also a payware airport, which I'll also put in the description down below. And this is in the beautiful city of Porto, which is the northern end of Portugal. I'll give you a few moments to explore, and I'll see you back in the cockpit. What'd you guys think about the airport? Pretty cool, huh? I think both of these airports are really nice. So, alright, the aircraft now is engaging the approach. And again, keep in mind that we're going from manually having the aircraft on a heading, where the aircraft now is going to start following the path again towards the approach. Now, because I had it on a manual heading, the aircraft now has to do more of a turn because it's going to have to completely turn itself around and align itself again with the ILS. If you did not do it manually, you let the aircraft guide itself to this point on the flight plan, then your aircraft would have done a nice gradual turn and you would have already been turned towards the airport. So don't mind that the aircraft is taking this longer turn. That's just because I manually changed it just to show you guys what would happen if your aircraft wasn't following the line. But this still works, and you'll see in a second that the aircraft will align itself back with its flight plan and will put you right back in line with the runway. I'm going to do my best to try and explain what the aircraft is doing. So at this moment, the aircraft is trying to align itself again back with that green line, and once it hits that green line, it's going to make a little left turn, and that should line it back up with the runway. So this is a good time now to pull down your landing gear, give it a little bit of drag to slow the aircraft down because we're fairly close, and you can start pulling down your flaps just to slow it down. And your speed at this point should be about 180. I should have mentioned to you that earlier. I think I did it on the turn, but you should be at about 180 right now and slowing down. And now what you want to do is you want to continue to reduce the power on the aircraft. So again, you got your air brakes and you got your throttle, and now that you have your wheels down, that's going to create some drag as well. So I can see the airport out in the distance. I can see the runway lights, and I picked this time of day just so you guys can see how the aircraft behaves and how it lands. But again, the ILS approach is usually done in a situation where the pilot can't see the runway, or if the visibility is fairly low. But in most real-world situations, the pilot will still do this procedure, get onto the ILS, especially on an aircraft of this size. And once the aircraft is aligned on the ILS at about 1,000 feet, the pilot will then manually take over and flare and land the aircraft. In this case, let's pretend that visibility is very poor. We can't see the runway, and we have it on full automatic landing where it will flare and roll out on its own. So what you want to look for now is you want to look at your main flight display and look at those two little pink circles. You'll see that there's one on the horizontal line and one on the vertical, and you want those to be centered right over the yellow line, which means that you're on the glide slope and you're on the localizer. So at this moment, I'm going to reduce my speed down to 141, and you're going to click that down button just to activate it. And then what you want to do next is you're going to want to monitor your instruments, making sure that it's going down the glide slope correctly. And you're going to want to create as much drag as possible to slow the aircraft down, which at this point would be good to pull your flaps to full. So just keep monitoring your aircraft. It's slowly making its way towards the runway. So just make sure, I know I haven't shown you in the video, but make sure that your lights are turned on for landing, and again your flaps are full, and that you're on the glide slope. That'll put you into a landing configuration. Again, I just wanted to explain that I made this tutorial. This isn't really the process, because normally you would have to be using the MCDU to program the flight plan and put in your calculations and everything else. But I created this just to help anybody who's new or doesn't really know how to program the MCDU. that it's still possible to do an automatic landing, or even just to align your aircraft to the runway so that you can perform the landing yourself. Just a few things before we touch down. So first thing, let the aircraft do what it has to do. Do not take over. The second point I want to make is you're going to start hearing a call out on the way down. You'll hear 1,500. When you hear 20, it is very important that you pull your throttle to idle, or pull your throttle all the way back to 0. And your aircraft will continue to flare and roll out on its own. The third thing is, once the front wheel touches the ground, you want to pull your throttle into reverse. Or if you're using a keyboard, push F2 and hold it down, and it'll put your reversers on, and that'll slow the aircraft right down.
500, 400, 300, 200, 100, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 5.
Alright, so how'd you guys do? Did you guys land okay? Let me know in the comments. I want to know if you guys were successful in doing the Autoland. And one thing I wanted to mention, because I didn't get a chance to do it prior, you know, I didn't want to stop you guys in the middle of hearing the callouts. But if you noticed on the end of the runway, there was these lights. And those lights there were white and red. When you're coming in, if you're flying manually and your instrument system is not working for whatever reason, those lights actually are a very good indication if you're high or low on the glide slope when you're coming in for a landing. So what you want is, you want half of them to be white and half of them to be red. If they're all red, that means you're too low. If they're all white, that means you're too high. Since I've parked my aircraft now, let's get the baggage guys to come out, some external power, open up the door and get the bridge to come over to the aircraft. You can just turn off all your lights, and you'll see the nice little animations of the guys coming over to the aircraft and taking care of it. So that was pretty much it, guys. Make sure your APU is turned on in the aircraft to give it some power if you're not using the external, and you're able to shut down your engine safely and deboard the aircraft. I'm going to end this video off now with a couple of replays from different angles of the landing the aircraft just performed automatically. I really hope that this tutorial, even though it's for beginners and it's not a full complex tutorial, I hope that it helped, maybe in answering some of your questions, or putting you on a better path to aligning yourself and coming in for a landing, even if you want to fly that manually. I know this video was longer than most of the videos that I've done in the past, but as always, I hope it was informative and that it taught you guys something, and that you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell. And if you have any friends or family members that are having issues trying to land the aircrafts or starting to learn how to fly commercial jets, feel free to share the video with them. Maybe it'll help them as well. As always, I hope you guys have a wonderful day or night from wherever you are, and we'll catch you guys on the next video. Happy flying.